Hey, what's up and welcome to Carl93's review of the Robot Spirits Penelope Gundam. This video is essentially a sequel to my previous review. The Penelope Gundam is from Yoshiyuki Tomino's novel Hathaway's Flash. To avoid confusion, I'm reviewing the first release of the Robot Spirits Penelope Gundam. There's a Marking Plus version that's a bit more expensive than this one, and there will also be a new version releasing in September based on its appearance in Hathaway the movie. Unlike the SEE Gundam, which got a blatant redesign, the Penelope's revisions are a bit more subtle, to the point that it's actually negligible. First look, and the Penelope Gundam is enormous. Just by its size alone, it's very impressive. It's basically a Gundam armored up with a giant aerial fortress. The Penelope Gundam follows the classic Gundam color scheme of white, red, blue, and essentially supersizing it. One would expect that something so big would have trouble moving around, but from the clips I've watched from SRW and SD Gundam G Generation, despite its size, the Penelope is a high-speed attacker, whooshing through the battlefield like a giant mechanical dragon. The Penelope can purge its flight unit and turn into the Odysseus Gundam, looking a bit more conventional while retaining the menacing head sculpt. As an action figure, it should come to no one's surprise that the Odysseus Gundam articulates a lot better than its combined form. The articulation is pretty standard, and this form even sizes well with the Robot Spirits SEE Gundam. Something that doesn't articulate a whole lot is the flight unit, appropriately named the Fixed Flight Unit, which in this form reminds me of Quadorn from Re-Rise. Posing the flight unit and the Odysseus is pretty fun as they complement each other very well. But, of course, they're gonna look even better once they're combined. The combination is pretty straightforward. The Fixed Flight Unit disassembles and will basically function as an oversized armor for the Odysseus Gundam. Most of the parts involved are a tight fit, and it requires a bit of force to detach and reattach. Even the smaller pegs, like the one on the oversized skirts, are a tight lock. With a figure this big, the tightness is necessary, and it helps with the solidity of the overall figure. One of my gripes about this is there are certain parts that aren't used for the final combination, and there are also separate parts that are needed to achieve the Penelope Gundam. I believe this is what's referred to as parts forming in Transformers toy speak. The figure can stand on its own, but it does require a bit of help. Thankfully, there are these kickstand parts near its feet. The biggest help is the tail of the Fixed Flight Unit. You simply face it down, plant it to the ground, and the Penelope can just stand there looking menacing while towering over other Gundams with its size. And speaking of size, here's Penelope Gundam next to Robot Spirits Gundam, next to Robot Spirits Unicorn Gundam Awakening, and next to my previous review, the Penelope's sister suit, the Robot Spirits SEE Gundam. So in conclusion, let's first address the elephant in the room. This Robot Spirits figure is very close to being a glorified brick. However, I don't feel the need to dock it any points. The main reason? The figure is replicating a Gundam design that's basically a glorified brick. I did mention earlier that despite its size, it goes through the battlefield in high speed. But if you look closely, he doesn't really pull off dynamic posing even when going supersonic. It's a bit unfair to expect strike or Exia levels of dynamic posing with this much mass. And speaking of mass, this figure is top heavy. I would recommend keeping the tail planted to keep it standing. The base does a good job for flight poses, but only for short periods of time. Regarding price, much like the SEE Gundam, the Penelope is a Tamashii Web exclusive with a price now lower in the secondary market, and that's thanks to the Marking Plus version that released later. I've mentioned it multiple times in this review, but the sheer size of this Robot Spirits figure is very impressive, a definite attention grabber when displayed on a shelf. It's also very playable. The option to keep it in two separate units or combine it into one bigger unit with the amount of solidity it retains is a definite positive. The original Robot Spirits Penelope Gundam, released 6 years ago and even by 2021 standards, all things considered, is still pretty good. With Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway premiering soon, it'll be quite the spectacle when the Sea and Penelope make their big screen debut. And, in a franchise that's been going for more than 40 years, the new movie will prove once again why Gundam isn't just for show.